Back, time for our Impact interview. Now, we really enjoy having people on the show that make us smarter when we're talking with them, and our guest this week certainly qualifies. Senior writer for CBS Sports, Dennis Dodd, is with us to talk all things college football. And Dennis, thanks for joining us. We're going to get right to the educational portion of our interview. You have a ton of experience covering the NCAA, and it seems like more and more they're losing their teeth when it comes to governing over the sport. Tell us about the new draft constitution, how it impacts not only college football, but basketball too.
Yeah, it's redoing the Ncaa Constitution. It's a 43-page document that I think is in the front of the Ncaa manual that, first of all, why is it 43 pages spelling out what the Ncaa does? And they basically boiled it down to like 19, I think. And it's going to be voted on in January at the Ncaa convention. But the big part of it now is, what does it mean? The Ncaa is giving a lot more power to the conferences and the divisions, Division 1, 2, and 3, to conduct business as they see fit. And I think the biggest thing is, and I'm about to write about it, two things. Enforcement, what's that going to look like? And nobody really knows. That's like a Rubik's Cube. If you allow conferences to do their own enforcement or divisions, because it's so unfair now. And the other thing is, I think we're going to see a subdivision of FBS. I think it's coming, first time since 1978, when 1A and 1AA were created, for the same reasons. The schools in power are sick of sharing money with the smaller schools. That's a very blunt answer, but that's exactly why. They want to make their own rules for recruiting, for coaching sizes, for recruiting budgets, I would say. And if, as one person put it to me this week, if Alabama wants 75 coaches, let them have 75 coaches. We're going to make do with 20.
Well, shifting to this week, with Penn State playing Rutgers, how big a game is this for a 5-5 Rutgers team looking to make a bowl in just year two under the second coming of Greg Schiano? And how important is for Penn State, just a game ahead of them at 6-4, to win this as well and stay ahead of them? Yeah, gosh.
A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about 4 teams down the stretch in the SEC East and who was going to come out of it and what was going to happen in the playoff. And, Penn State's not that team anymore. But, yeah, when you've got 8-4 is going to look a lot better than 7-5 at this point. So it's huge for momentum going forward. And I think this is right. I think James is recruiting at a high level. So, yeah, and you never want to lose to Rutgers. I mean, we know what kind of shame that brings upon anybody. But good for Schiano that they're in this position to maybe go to a bowl. His problem, quote unquote, among others, that he's in this division with these superpowers. And how far can you get? It was a little easier getting to 10 wins in the old Big East in 2006 and challenging for a BCS bid than it is now in the Big Ten. But I think there's some good to take from both these programs right now.
Dennis, you're generally covering the biggest game of the year, but we haven't seen you here at Penn State in Happy Valley yet. Are you surprised, given the start of the season, that Penn State has struggled the past 5 games?
I am, because I was at Iowa, and that's really where the season changed. I mean, they're up 17-3. Sean Clifford gets hurt. PJ, is it Bustaford? PJ Bustaford gets hurt. That was huge. It turned out in the long run. And I'm convinced, as many others are, if Sean Clifford doesn't get hurt, Penn State wins, and they might win big. It just allowed Iowa, with a lacking offense, to kind of make inroads and finally win it late. I think that's where the season changed. But even then, I think after that, to be surprised to see them in the situation they are now. I mean, the win over Auburn was good, was big. Had they won Iowa, they would have been at the top or tied for the top in the East. So, I guess I am a little bit surprised. The injuries have been significant.
Well, look, you're really tapped into the world of the coaching carousel. And this year it seems like someone cranked up the jack-in-the-box music and started this thing turning earlier. And more often than ever, too many specifics to jump in with all the coaches. But what are the biggest factors, do you think, are driving this incredible impatience around the country?
Yeah, I've got my numbers right here because I wrote about it this week. This isn't a big year for turnover. I think the issue is just what you said. 5 now 5 of the 5 of the 12 coaches that have been let go so far have been let go during the season. We just didn't see that a lot. But I think now with the transfer portal, the early signing day, those two combined, you can't wait. You've got to get a head start on recruiting your players, not only for signing day, but through the portal, depending on what your philosophy is, whether you want to go heavy on that or not. And it's to the point where, look, there aren't that many big names left. I counted since 2016, and this will be 7 years. 72 Power 5 jobs have changed hands. 48 out of the 65 Power 5 schools have had at least one change since then. That's 75% of the Power 5. But this year, the raw numbers aren't that big. Only 12 jobs open. Last year, in the COVID year, there were 18. In 2019 and 2016, there were 27 altogether. But we haven't seen, these top 20 jobs open like LSU and USC. That just hasn't happened. In 18, Florida and A&M were open. I think we can say those are top 20 jobs. In 17, LSU, Oklahoma, and Texas were open. And everybody wants to know about LSU and USC. And I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I mean, if this stuff about Mel Tucker's true and he's going to stay at Michigan State long term, I don't know where either of those two turn.
Good stuff. And we're going to step aside for the TV show to take a break. We will continue talking with Dennis Dodd. So if you want to see the entire conversation with one of the most knowledgeable reporters in the sport, make sure to go to NittanyGameWeek.com for the full interview, along with other web-exclusive content. Did you know Michigan is a popular topic for Nittany Lions fans on social media? Sure, they have bragging rights for this year. It didn't stop PSU fans from having some fun at the game. We check out the Pride picks and wrap up the show when we return. We're heading into the final minutes on Nittany Game Week.
I've talked a lot about switching gears a little bit. Talked about name, image, and likeness for the last 2 years, really, just talking on and off about it. Now that we're several months into that reality, what are some of the things that maybe have surprised you so far, and maybe things that and some of the deals that maybe haven't worked out? How do you see it so far?
There's only been really one thing that surprised me, because none of these deals, let me say this, have been off-putting where, oh, this is ridiculous. Let them, you're worth what somebody will pay you. And it hasn't affected the game, to my thinking, on the field. The players are, if you show up and work, it really doesn't matter for any of these teams. Spencer Rattler has 2 cars. I did a story on that. I called the president of the automotive group who gave it to him in Oklahoma City when he lost the starting job to Caleb Williams. And I said, are you getting your return on investment? And he said, oh, yeah, no, it's free advertising. We contribute to OU sports. It's fine. I started to think about it. My dad sold cars for years, and this is costing them nothing. It is free advertising because every dealer takes a portion of their car, like coaches' cars, the free cars you get from the university. Though you drive those for a period of time, you turn them in, and they sell them as demos. If you ever bought a car, you know what a demo is. So that's what they're going to do with his car.
Wait a minute, not as many miles as my car had on
not
it.
As many,
it
no,
wasn't
right.
worth that much. Okay, so they do what you drive.
Tom beat the hell out of
You were recruiting, right, Tom?
My guy still wants me to keep buying cars. Hey, maybe buy here, so.
You had to go recruit, yeah. So you needed that. The only one that turned me off was, and this is really causing a ripple in around the country. You guys probably remember this. BYU had an energy bar mogul come in and pay for all the scholarships to the walk-ons. And that raised some eyebrows, where essentially BYU has 120 scholarship players. Right. And so I started poking around, seeing if anybody else is looking at it. They are, but no one's pulled the trigger. I don't know if you've heard of Blake Lawrence, the guy at Open Doors. He told me that, he told me that he's heard of dozens of schools looking into doing this. But again, it would be quite an investment. Again, and what's your return on the investment? If it's just dead money, if you're paying for walk-ons who are probably not going to play, but it gets you a certain amount of publicity. I think all of this will settle down in the next year or two when these companies find out, maybe we didn't get the bounce we wanted for all this. So, we'll see.
Yeah, and that BYU, people don't realize BYU's tuition is only $6,000 a year.
Is that right?
It's really low.
Wow.
Because that came up at a trustee meeting. I said, you guys know what BYU's tuition is? And they went, really? It's that low? I said, yeah. I'm thinking of converting my kids and sending them to college there.
Yeah, there you go. I did not know that. That's
Hey,
interesting.
hey, Dennis, the college football playoff poll each week seems to generate a lot of discussion, most notably about Michigan being ranked ahead of Michigan State. Despite the Spartans' head-to-head win, how much do you think that matters right now, other than giving fans and writers something to talk about week after week?
Yeah, I think the Tuesday night show is way overblown and overwrought. We have to react to it because that's what we do. But I think it serves a purpose. It served a better purpose if it came out 2 weeks before Pick'em Day. Then you could see, you're not held. They're not held to this standard where, well, why'd you do this or why'd you do that? Look, they can do anything they want on Pick'em Day. We saw that in 2014 when TCU number 3 won by 52 points and dropped from 3 to 6, or
Yep.
three to out of the top 4.
Yeah.
And Ohio State went in and won the whole thing. And that's what they'll, without telling you, that's what they can do. And so Michigan ahead of Michigan State, I don't have a problem with it. I saw that game, and I think in the back of their minds, they're looking at the fact that Jim Harbaugh mentioned it last week, that the fumble was probably real. It was called dead on the field after review by Peyton Thorne. I think Aiden Hutchinson recovered it for a touchdown. If that happens, maybe Michigan wins. I think they accounted for themselves well that day. But then you've got Oregon over Ohio State. I don't have a problem with that. I was at that game, and Oregon handled Ohio State pretty well. Now, since then, Ohio State has beaten up on its opponents more than Oregon has beaten up. Oregon's had a lot of injuries, but it's going to take care of itself. The top 7 were the same, right, this week?
Yeah.
It's going to take care of itself. We can all assume Georgia's going to be in. So depending on what happens in the SEC championship game, there are going to be 2 or 3 spots. One of them, I think we can say, is going to go to the Big Ten, a one-loss Big Ten team. There's still a chance they could all beat each other up and eliminate the Big Ten with everybody having 2 losses. Okay, that's a spot. Then there's 1 or 2 spots left. If Oregon wins, they take 1. If they don't, that's a great boon for Cincinnati, because at that point, then an undefeated Cincinnati is competing against an 11-1 Notre Dame at best, who they beat, in a 1-loss at best Big 12. And I think Cincinnati might get the nod over them. So it looks better for Cincinnati. Let me put it that way.
Dennis, we've already discussed a couple of things that have changed, right? The updated signing day, the moved up signing day, the transfer portal, the name, image, and likeness. Are divisions the next thing that they're eyeing up when it comes to expanding the playoffs, that type of deal? I mean, Coach Franklin's on the record. He'd like to get rid of the East and, West of the Big Ten potentially. The SEC may be holding on to that a little bit more, but I think there seems to be a little bit of a wave, maybe the division part of it, as they try to get to expand the playoffs. How about your thoughts on that? Or is that one of the things you think will be targeted and eliminated here sometime in the future?
I would say yes, except that the divisional structure is so traditional in the SEC, and the fact that they've had, the last time I counted, they had, out of the 27 years they've had the SEC championship game, they've had like 3 true upsets. So the best team always wins. It's very competitive. Now, take the SEC out of it. I think they should all go to that, because you saw this proposal this week that leaked out about the Power 5 champions all getting in automatically. Well, if you stay with divisions, that creates the possibility of, what year was it, 2018 or 19, an 8-4 Northwestern beats Ohio State, and Northwestern gets in at 9-4, and Ohio State gets in at an at-large. But you know what that does? That takes away an at-large spot from the SEC or Big Ten, for example. But if everybody is convinced to do what the Big 12 has done, and the American is doing now, is to go to one division and match your 2 best teams in the championship game, you don't have that problem. Your 2 best teams are always playing, and they always have 1 or no losses, it would seem. So you could have those, and it would enhance the value of the conference season and the regular season, which is what these commissioners are all about. With 12 teams, I do believe Bob Bowlesby, the Big 12 commissioner, says late in the season you're going to have 30 teams in contention for those spots. At halfway through the season, they're going to be 40, and that does nothing but enhance the interest for the game.
Well, you've covered every BCS title game, and I believe you've covered every playoff title game. So this year, obviously, the 12-team playoff came up. And the proposal of everybody sort of gets a trophy playoff system, is the way I refer to it. But this year it's hard to see where there's 8 playoff-worthy teams, let alone 12. So where do you see this playoff proposal really going, and how soon do you think a change comes to the system?
Yeah, that's a huge question. I think they'll eventually get to 12. It's not going to be 8 because 8 doesn't get you there. There are now seven games in the system. I'm counting the New Year's 6 games. And if you went to 8, there would still be 7 games in the system, except all 7 would matter. And ESPN's not going to pay more for that because it's the same amount of games. Why should they? So you go to 12. I've already written that it's already written into the contract with the CFP that ESPN has to pay for 12. There's no negotiation. Here it is. And I don't know that exact number. It's been reported that if it started in 24, it would be an extra $450 million per year. So I think it's going to happen. What I, again, we just discussed it, the structure and the access, what's that going to look like? And then what's it going to look like for the viewer? I think we're virtually assured that a 12-team playoff is going to be parceled out to different rights holders, much the same way the postseason is in every other sport, baseball, NFL, basketball, the TNT and CBS. So you're going to have whatever it is, the play-in games on one network, quarterfinals on another, semis maybe on another, and then a bidding for the championship game. Or like we see the Super Bowl between Fox and CBS every year. I think that's right. Yeah. I don't think NBC's in it, but so I think that's coming, and that's kind of inside baseball that nobody cares about. But it does suggest in the near future we're not going to see streaming with the playoff. I've been told that by the people at the highest level because there is still value to broadcast television and linear cable, and will be for years. You just saw, not to get political, but with this infrastructure bill, we're not the country's not even fully wired for broadband. So you can't stream playoff games and try to make all this money when people can't see the commercials, for lack of a better definition. So I think we're going to have that. It's really what the issue has been from the beginning is structure and access, and that's what they're still arguing over.
Hey, Dennis, since we do have you here, I just want to ask you this question. Who are your top 4 teams right now? We'll put you on the spot.
I do it every week. I had Georgia. I had Cincinnati just because they are undefeated. I believe I had Oregon, and I had Ohio State, in there. I do not think I don't have it right in front of me, but I think those were the top 4, and then Michigan State right outside that group. And then I think Oklahoma dropped down.
I didn't hear an Alabama in there.
I'm sorry, Alabama. God, see, I don't.
Yeah.
That's research.
At least he didn't
Alabama,
say Missouri, his alma mater.
Georgia, Alabama, Cincinnati, Oregon, Ohio State at 5. That's it.
Okay. I mean, I think
edit that out.
Bama's like a given, right? I mean, it's just, you just got
right now they are.
Senior writer moment.
Yeah, senior writer moment is right.
All right, so one more, and it's not even about college football. We understand you're a hockey nut. So, look, we got the Penguins, the Flyers, and there's a lot of Capitals fans around because the Hershey Bears are the affiliate for the Caps. So they got a lot of young guys right now from Hershey on the Capitals. But I understand you're a St. Louis Blues fan, right?
I am born and raised, big hockey fan. Love Pagula. I've seen it. Love going to games there. Covered Stanley Cup playoffs and finals. That's probably one of the highlights of my career. And yeah, it's been a blast. In 2019, they let me cover Game 4 in St. Louis. So I lived in Kansas City. I drove over and back, and that was special. That was unbelievable. So yeah, anytime I can see a game, and not just the Blues, I will go to minor league games. I will go anywhere. I just like watching the beauty of the game.
Well, if you're in town, let us know. We'll get you in Chocolate Town. If you haven't seen the
There
Bears.
you go. I'll take it.
A lot of fun. Hey, Dennis, anything else you wanted to add, or Tom or Jay, you guys, while we got them, throw anything at it? We appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks,
Big time.
Dennis. Appreciate it.
It's an honor with you guys. Thank you so much.